following interview was conducted with Edward Krysak on April 8, 1989. Mr. Krysak was interviewed about his experience in connection with World War II. This interview was conducted at Mr. Krysak's residence in North Dallas by Nelson Villavicencio. Mr. Krysak, did you enlist or were you drafted in the war?
No, I enlisted. May 16th, 1943, on my 17th birthday.
And what branch of the military did you join?
United States Navy.
How about the time, were there women also encouraged to enlist at that time?
Well, we had no women in the service at that time. We had waves, but they did clerical work mainly. We had no woman on ship. Darn it.
Do you recall, or can you perhaps explain to me, what was a victory garden? A victory garden in that time?
Well, at that time, a victory garden was when people had any plots of land. You know, they were planting their own foods, you know, to help the war effort. In other words, they planted their own potatoes, tomatoes, and things like that if they had plots of land.
And you remember the comics, Willie and Joe, some cartoons that were depicting some soldiers that did whatever they were told, something like that?
Well, I don't remember Willie and Joe, but I remember G.I. Joe. And there was a cartoon that was written by, I'm not sure, I believe it was Ernie Pyle. It was a correspondent that traveled with servicemen. And he used to write cartoons about them. He was very well liked. He was a soldier's reporter. In other words, he looked at the G.I. Joe, the way they lived and everything, and it was very nice.
And so, you have a German background, I understand, is that right?
No, it's Polish.
Polish?
Polish-Ukrainian background.
Okay, so at the time you had no problem with being a Polish-American. Like the Germans, perhaps anybody thought that they would have a problem because Hitler was the enemy.
No, as a matter of fact, we had quite a few Germans on our ship.
No problem?
No problems whatsoever.
Okay, what happened with the Italians? Any problem?
No problems with the Italians either.
Okay, how about the Japanese?
Well, that I don't know because we had not much to do with the Japanese, but I understand they had the problems on the West Coast.
They did?
Yes, they were put in concentration camps, the parents and everything, because of, I don't really know why. And we made a big joke out of that. We had a Japanese division that fought in Europe. It was the most decorated division of all, and it was a all Japanese division. But they fought in Europe.
I see.
Against the Germans.
I see. And so you left. Tell me a little bit about that at the time. What were the emotions, your parents, and going to war, and did you have a girlfriend and things like that?
No, I was only 17 at the time. I didn't have no girlfriend. I mean, I went out with girls, but I didn't have no steady girl. And as far as me going into the war about the family, they were pretty much against it because I already had two brothers in. And they could have kept me out as the sole, surviving brother. They could have kept me out, but I wanted to get in, being 17 and stupid. I wanted to get in, so they let me enlist.
And you recall when you went down, did you have any previous training, or did you have, before leaving, anything like that?
What do you mean?
Training. Did you go to training camp? Or?
Oh, yes, we went to what they call boot camp. And we had, I think it was 8 or 10 weeks of training. I mean, whatever that was, just more or less survival training. Because they were pushing them pretty fast to get them out, into the field. So that's the training we had, and that was it.
Do you feel that at that time that training was sufficient to go to war?
At that time, I couldn't tell you one way or another because we didn't know what it was all about.
No.
Being young and whatever training we had, we didn't know if it was sufficient or not sufficient. And when we got on ship, it was, for the jobs that we had to do. Of course, I was a seaman first class, and it didn't take much brains or anything to be a seaman first class. And as far as that went, the training was pretty sufficient.
Okay, so you took a ship and went out there by ship?
Well, no, we went overseas. I went over on the Queen Mary. We left Pier 92 in New York. They woke us up 3 o'clock in the morning, packed our bags, and right next pier was the Queen Mary. We went on the Mary, and we were in England the next day. So we got there fast, and then in luxury, if you call it luxury, riding on the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
So
it is a luxury ship now.
Yeah, we went there. We got there pretty fast. No convoy, no nothing, because she was very fast, and the submarines, couldn't keep up with her. So.
Did you have any fear of being bombarded by Hitler's submarines in the way there?
Well, as I tell you, being 17 years old, young, and, full of it, looking for adventure and everything, you don't know what fear is. You don't fear nothing until you come in contact with it. While we were on the Mary, they had a couple of general quarter drills. That means that there's a submarine or something in the vicinity. And we all had to get in certain places of the ship, to stay. And then the crew went up and manned the guns, whatever they had. But it was all a big joke. It was a lot of fun, actually, when we first were going over.
And upon arrival in England, how was the reception?
Well, we didn't arrive in England. We arrived in Scotland. Rosneath, Scotland. That's where they built the Queen Mary. So we unloaded there. And we were there for about 6 weeks. Then we were shipped to London. I was sent to a radio school. We were going to be radiomen. And then when we got to London, then we got our first inkling of the war with the bombing and V2s, the V1s, the buzz bombs we called them. They were automatic bombs that Germany was developing at that time. Unmanned, they sent them over. And then you started to figure out somebody could get hurt here. Then you start worrying.
Okay, and so from there, from England, then what was the next step? And
well, then from England, we were sitting there. As I say, being the 17-year-old kid, we were looking for action and sea duty and all that. And we kept requested it, and finally a ship pulled in that was short 2 seamen. LST. I didn't even know what an LST was. So we volunteered for it. And then we were shipped aboard ship, and we found out it's LST stands for Landing Ship Tank. It was a landing craft. But they're large. They're almost as large as a merchant ship. That's how big they are. And that's what I served on.
so that took you across the channel?
Yes.
English Channel into Europe?
Right. When the invasion came, that's what we hit Normandy with. I was on the LST. And it's quite experienced to ride one of those darn things. They're flat bottom, for one thing. If you spit over the side, she'd rock. Because riding those things in the water was, kind of rough. And then when we went into the invasion, this is the type of ship. It's a long ship, like I say, a merchant ship. And what they do is they go full speed into the beach, right up on the beach. Then they open the doors and drop the ramp, and we carry tanks, trucks, half-tracks, all the heavy stuff.
Right on that.
That goes right up on the beach, then we wait for the tide to go out. And we're sitting there high and dry until that tide comes in. Can't go no place. And then when they start shelling and bombing, you ain't got no place to go.
Did that happen at the time?
Oh yes, we We were hit by aircraft bombing and German 88s from the inside the perimeter where the English were attacking. Of course, I went in with the English, the British 8th Army. We were assigned to them. And
this was you landed in France.
France on D-Day. And then after we unloaded all our equipment and everything, as I say, we wait for the tide to come in. And just before we hit the beach, we have a big anchor on the back. About 300 yards before we hit the beach, they drop that anchor. And that anchor would hook. And then the ship would go up on the beach. Then when we're ready to go off, and when the water starts, floating us, they pull that anchor. And that helps pull the ship off the beach.
To get it back in the water.
Get it back in the water.
To return back to
go back to England, load up again, then come back again to do the same thing. We did that about 6 times to get all the heavy equipment over.
Did you set camp right there, or did you go right into movement inside the country, go looking for
into
the
the
front? Yeah.
No, we couldn't. We had to stay right on the beach. We had to stay with the ship. We couldn't leave the ship. We had to stay with the ship. That's what I was saying. When any action did happen, you had no place to run. And then we couldn't go on the beach too because there was a lot of booby traps that the Germans left behind. And being Americans, I guess, I don't know if everybody does it, you go souvenir hunting. And you see a German Luger on the beach there, you go to pick it up and boom,
a trap.
They're booby traps. They left a lot of booby traps. So that's why we were confined to the ship. We couldn't leave the ship. We had to stay with the ship and on the ship at all times.
So the trap would be it would be rigged with, like, you would see a gun or something like that.
Yeah,
go and try to get it.
Go and say, as soon as you pick it up, it'll go up in your face.
Isn't that something?
There'd be booby traps. Oh, they left quite a few booby traps. Then going back, after we unloaded, when you get the real idea of war, beside the bombing and everything, it actually, especially at night, it's a beautiful sight, if you could say that. Because when the planes came over, we opened up with our anti-aircraft. Every third shell in our gun was a tracer. One was armored piercing, one was tracer, one was explosive. And you see all these lights going up. And they go so slow. In other words, like they're never going to reach up there. And it's a fantastic sight.
This was targeting the German planes.
Yes, German planes. Like one joke we laughed at, one morning we were on general quarters all night for about 9 hours or something like that. Finally they secured general quarters. In other words, they ring a bell and say general quarters secured. We went down to our bunks. No sooner we got down in our bunks, this German plane, I don't know where he came from, flew over us and hit a tanker, dropped a bomb, hit a tanker, not too far from us. Then they ring general quarters again and everybody come up to their guns. And any plane that flew over, they opened up and fired. And the joke was the next day that we shot down 3 planes. 2 British Spitfires and 1 American plane.
Wow.
That was the joke. I don't know how true that is, but
it was never confirmed though.
No, never confirmed, but I mean, everybody was trigger happy. As soon as a plane come over, they didn't know who it was, they didn't care, they just opened up on them. And that was the big joke we laughed about that. Well, it wasn't funny, but...
Was there any time while you were there that you changed your mind about this adventure, seeking the same youngster that left?
Well, I don't know if you would say you change your mind. I mean, let's put it this way, you grow up fast. You go there as a 17-year-old kid that don't know nothing, and within a very short time you become a man, and you start realizing what life is all about. And then you start getting religious, you start praying, and I tell you, you grow fast.
How were the days in camp? During the day, you had drills, or were you just
No, we had no drills. We were mostly on Joe waters, because every time we crossed that channel, we were open to attack. Because they had German U-boats, they had submarines, they had planes. And we almost for sure thought we would be constantly on attack. Why the Germans never went after the supply routes still bugs historians today. And so constantly we were at our guns on watch. Till we got back to England, then we relaxed, then they loaded us up again, then we went back to France, and then we're on watch again.
Do you recall how many times did that happen? Going back and coming back?
About 6 times. We made that there.
Across that channel?
About 6 times. And the reason why we didn't do it more, on the 6th time, the captain coming in misjudged something, hit a sandbar, and the ship buckled. So when he unloaded, we went back to England. We had to go into dry dock for repairs. And then after that there, the Normandy was pretty well secured. And then we were getting ready for the invasion of southern France. They were getting us ready for that there, but then they didn't need us because we were still in dry dock, and our flotilla went down and hit southern France, invaded southern France.
And was that the end of your action, seeing action in the war?
Well, that was the end of the action there, yeah.
So it was time to get back home?
Yes, time to go to the Pacific.
After the Pearl Harbor situation with the Japanese?
Right, after that there was no more need for the invasion force in, well, we were amphibians, the amphibian force they called us. And there was no more need for them there. So then they packed us up, sent us back home, get us ready for Japan.
So you came and visited with your parents?
Oh yeah, I came home.
How long, you remember?
How long we had to...
Were you home? You had to leave?
Oh yeah, we all got a 30-day leave. And then we were...
Back to Japan?
No, I never made the Pacific.
You never made it?
No, I never made the Pacific.
Okay, they decided on this bomb and threw the threat on Japan, and there was no need for you to go out there anymore.
Well, we were down in Cuba. On our way to the Pacific when the war was over with Japan.
Because of the atomic bomb?
Atomic bomb.
Okay, what do you think about the atomic bomb and the action of the United States in those islands? There were people there.
Well, I'll tell you, as far as the atomic bomb goes, I think it was, in my personal opinion, it was a big mistake in one way, but in one way we had to do it. The Japanese were tough fighters. People don't realize that they fought until the last man. Now, if we ever would have invaded Japan, it would have been such a big casualty on both sides, because they would never have given up. As a matter of fact, I forgot what armament it was that they took from Japan, and they had, I think, about 5,000 of them or something trapped. And the Americans were begging them to surrender, and they all kept jumping off the cliffs, killing themselves. They would not surrender. And that was a reason, things like that, I guess, decided on the atomic bomb, Truman to drop the atomic bomb, because the invasion of their homeland, they would have put up one hell of a fight. And I don't think they would have surrendered. I think there would have been millions.
To the last one.
Yeah, there would have been millions killed. I think that dropping a bomb was a horrible thing for us to be the first to do, but I personally think that saved lives. You can't say that these people that were hit with the bomb, they suffered. I mean, it's no getting away from it. But there would have been an awful lot more people killed if they didn't do that. So there's two ways you have to look at that. It's horrible in one way, and it was beneficial in another way.
And when you were in Cuba, what part of Cuba was that? In Guantanamo?
Guantanamo Bay.
And then you made it back to the U.S. and that was it. That was all you saw in action. Is there anything that we haven't covered in this interview that you would like to add regarding World War II?
Well, as far as the people of England, I tell you, I give those people such credit. I've never seen a people take punishment like they've taken. With that blitz that they went under, it was amazing how those people survived and withstood all that. Because they were devastated. I mean, everything was, you had to see it to believe it. And there were no food. They were starving. There was, it's a heck of a thing to say, but the Americans were going there with a bar of chocolate, getting what they wanted.
Right.
A pack of gum got what they wanted. You know what I mean?
The cigarettes and everything.
Huh?
And the cigarettes and everything.
I mean, I'm telling you, it really, it turns your stomach to see something like that happening. But I tell you, I give those people great credit.
And
because they withstood some punishment. How they did it, I don't know. I hate to see something like that happen here. I think we'd fall apart.
I believe so.
I think we'd fall apart. But those people, the more they were bombed, the more they fought back. Very courageous people.
And how do you feel about the threat of Hitler in those days? I mean, how do you view it?
Well,
Hitler's action?
he was a nut.
Uh-huh.
He was a madman for what he did. Although, when you read about Hitler, when he first started, he did great things for the country. He took a country that was completely bankrupt, broke, nothing, and built it up to one of the most powerful nations in the world, but he lost his mind. He wanted to conquer the world. And the things he did, especially like with the Jews, that's unforgivable. That's something that I still don't believe when I read and see. Because when I was in the service, we knew nothing about that. We never heard stories like that. I never knew. Who never heard about concentration camps, the way they were killing, burning up the Jews? Nobody even knew that.
When did you realize that was going on?
Actually, after the war. After the war, when the stories come out and they showed the pictures, when they took over these camps, and they showed the pictures of these bodies piled up. I mean, it was so hard to believe that a human being could do something like that.
So that made you feel better that you went to this war against such a madman.
Definitely, because when we first went in, we wasn't mad at nobody. As I tell you, being a young kid, America is going to war, we're Americans, the flag is waving, let's go. Young, 17 years old. I wanted to get out of high school. The heck of a thing to say, I quit high school to join the service. I mean, it was a thrill and everything like that. I wasn't mad at the Germans. I had a lot of German friends. I had a lot of Italian friends. We had Italians and Germans in with us aboard ship. But when you see things like that there, you wish you could have done more to them. Because it really was terrible.
Mr. Krysak, when you returned from Cuba, and I believe it must have been a triumphant return, and how was the welcome of the military guys out there?
Welcome was very good. People really appreciated it. That war they appreciated. It was not like the Vietnam War where they were all supposed to be killers and everything. And we were treated very good. The government treated the servicemen fairly well. And we all had benefits. A lot of us took advantage of them. Unfortunately, I didn't. Because I could have went back to high school, finished high school. I could have got a college education, free, all under the government. I never took advantage of it. I went straight to work. I wanted money in my pocket, right away. So I'm sorry now I never took advantage of the opportunity I had when I got into the service.
Did you keep in touch with your buddies?
No.
Did you have buddies then? Did you?
No, I never did. We never kept in touch. Because we changed a lot. In other words, we had replacements all the time, and you never got a real buddy that you stayed with.
I see.
So I never kept in touch with anybody.